So I had the pleasure of introducing Dr. Jeffrey Shop. I know a few of you guys know him, or you're wearing your rehab shirts from maybe going and seeing him and having rehab. But you guys I know we have some new faces here too, which is great, but please, Dr. Shop will kind of talk a little bit about what he does, but we want to leave time for any questions or anything like that too. And we brought some fun models to show as well. So turn it over to you, Dr. Shop.
Good morning. How's everybody doing? Is that loud enough? You can hear me okay? A little bit more? The deep projecting voice? Like, my dad was a football coach, so I've got that, like, he had that driving deep voice. So anyway, I'll try to channel that a little bit. So quick bio on me. I grew up and did my school and training in Illinois, central Illinois. Small rural communities, much like this. As I said, my dad was a football coach. Never any place big, little small high school coach. He was good enough that he kept getting promoted to slightly bigger communities, so we moved around a lot. But this feels like home to me. Just kind of rural, small roads, cornfields. This feels like where I grew up. So I live near Denver now, but this is kind of what I'm used to. I trained I went to school at a small liberal arts college, Millikan University in central Illinois, and then I went to Southern Illinois University to do medical school, where I was convinced I was going to be a family practitioner. I was just going to deliver babies and talk to people to end of their life, manage you through your whole life. Plan to come back to Sterling, Illinois, where my parents lived at that point, and then, you know, in medical school, you get exposed to all the specialties. And once I saw surgery, it was pretty transformative. I was like, this is really neat. You really, as opposed to managing a problem, you can intervene, you can fix a problem, which really was appealing to me. So for 6 or 8 weeks, I was convinced I was going to be a general surgeon. And then I did plastic surgery, and I was convinced I was going to do that. But then, you know, really, orthopedics, having been kind of a bad high school athlete and a worse college athlete, it really appealed to me. The musculoskeletal system, trying to be in shape like we are here today, you know, here at the YMCA, where that's the goal, really appealed to me. That you could take a person who's in pain, take a person who has dysfunction, take a patient who doesn't have the activity level that they want, and you can intervene and help them. Really, really appealed to me. It's hard to get into. I was lucky. I trained there in Springfield at Southern Illinois, and then I practiced in Springfield for about 15 years, a good amount of time, and that was a huge hospital system. Springfield, Illinois is the tertiary care center for all of central Illinois. Basically, anything north of St. Louis, anything south of Chicago, we were it. So major motor vehicle accidents, you know, a little bit of urban violence, farming accidents, so a lot of trauma experience, but then just the volume of doing routine general orthopedics, joint replacement, fracture work. Really enjoyed that practice, but my practice evolved to where it wasn't what I had when I started. We as a group in Springfield kept adding providers, and I got a little bit squeezed by some people that were doing subspecialty work. And then I discovered this model where you can travel to a more rural area or a smaller hospital area and kind of do everything, which I really felt comfortable doing. You know, I finished training in 2003. At that point, about half of the orthopedic surgeons graduating were just orthopedic surgeons, just generally trained orthopedic surgeons. Now that number is only about 20%. Most surgeons subspecialize for a couple of reasons. One, it's a lifestyle demand. You want to be a part of a big group so that you can have time off, have call coverage, live in a bigger community. But that didn't appeal to me. The thing that appealed to me about orthopedics was doing a lot of different things. And you know, the 80-20 rule, that 80% of things are easy and the 20% is really hard, that also applies to orthopedics. Most routine surgery that we do, you know, with enough training, is pretty reproducible, and I feel very comfortable doing it, not even having done a subspecialty training. But where I trained it in Springfield at SIU, I really feel like they did a good job of preparing me to do the cases that I do. The training systems were just a little bit different then. It was much more hands-on right out of the gate. One of the stories I tell is my third day of surgery. So basically, like, I'm fresh out of medical school. Here's your pager. Go find Dr. Barkmeyer. She's the vascular surgeon. She's doing a big surgery. You're with her today. And I got there and she was like, okay, we're doing this together. I know it's your third day, but you're here to learn. We're doing this together. So really hands-on training. Felt very comfortable at the end of my 5 years that I could contribute, that I could do a really nice job. So with that comfort with general orthopedics, that melded nicely with this opportunity to work with InReach. And I think you know that I've been coming here for, well, maybe you know, I've been coming here for 10 years now. The spring is just a month ago is my anniversary of 10 years. I also work in Holdridge, and then I do a little bit of work in Alma, which I think I said it right this time.
Yes, you did.
The urge to pronounce it Alma is overwhelming, but Alma. And then I've been working in Minden for almost 8 years. So I've done some work even in this room. It's been really fun working here. And I'm trying just aggressively to make sure that the community knows that we are here doing good orthopedic work because, with the change in this town that everybody knows about, I just want to make sure my hospital is healthy. So I'm going to do whatever I got to do to try to make sure patients know we're here, we're doing a good job, and that you don't necessarily need to drive to the next bigger town to get the care that you need. The joke I make that I've made in the past is I can do a world-class joint replacement right here at this hospital, and the nurse will probably actually learn your name before you leave because it's a much more intimate setting. We have great staff that does a really good job. So I'm going to blather just a minute or two on what's the newest, latest, and greatest in each of the three main joint replacements, and then I'm just going to open it to questions. So the most modern version of, let's do this last. Let's do them in reverse order. So probably the least frequently joint replaced is shoulder. A typical anatomic shoulder looks like a shoulder. This would be the socket, and this would be the shoulder where we replace the humeral surface with metal and the socket surface with plastic. This is the design choice for a younger person, but I'm sure everybody's heard the term reverse shoulder arthroplasty. And that is where we reverse the joint, where we put the ball where the socket used to be and the socket where the ball used to be, which seems crazy. This was originally invented for people who had massive rotator cuff problems. The rotator cuff's job is to center or keep the shoulder stable so that the big muscles can move your arm. And in a rotator cuff deficient shoulder, in a person who doesn't have a cuff, if you put a traditional shoulder in like this, their pain may go away, but they probably will not regain their ability to lift their arm. If you move the shoulder around, if you flip the joint, it changes the center of rotation to be closer to the midline of the body, which improves, just like a teeter-totter, the pulling action of the deltoid so that the muscles have more of a mechanical advantage. If the shoulder point rotation is closer to the middle, it affords the patient ability to lift their arm up. So this was invented 30 years ago to help people just with rotator cuff problems. Everybody else was still getting a traditional shoulder. But it became clear pretty rapidly that those patients were doing so well that the shoulder surgeons started to do that for more and more patients. Instead of just big rotator cuff tears, maybe we'll do it for small rotator cuff tears. Maybe if you have any rotator cuff problem. And now basically anybody above the age of 60, this is the method of choice because the outcomes are good, the rotation improves, motion gets better, and patients' symptoms go away. So even though it seems crazy to spin the shoulder around, the x-rays look funny, this is the procedure of choice. How am I doing? You guys still hear me okay? Yep. Too fast, too slow? You guys are all caught up on reverse?
When can I schedule it?
Hannah's right there. I can see you this afternoon. Did you eat breakfast?
Yeah, one of these.
You have to have an empty stomach for surgery. One of my mentors used to say that, like in the hallway, if a nurse would come up and say, like, hey, my knee's been hurt, and he'd be like, well, did you have breakfast? And if she said no, he'd be like, well, let's...
We shouldn't have said that. We should have done the talk first.
Total hip is the gold standard. Total hip is my favorite operation. Most most total joint surgeons do about 2 knee replacements for every 1 hip replacement they do, because that's just the math of the problem. There are more people who have knee arthritis than there are hip arthritis. In my previous practice in Springfield, did that come up nice on the camera? In my previous practice in Springfield, I was the joint surgeon for a group, I was the total hip surgeon for the group of 10 of us. So I did a disproportionately high number of hip replacements. I've done it through the front, I've done it through the back, I've done it through the side, I've done all manner of implants, but it's a satisfying operation because the pain relief is so fast, it's so profound, and then patients kind of just forget all about ever having surgery. It's nearly akin to magic. It's maybe the most satisfied patients that I have. But modern hip replacement is a titanium cup with a very, very durable plastic liner. In the past, we used to be worried that these liners would work out, and that's why we would withhold doing joint replacement hip surgery on patients until you were old enough to have the surgery. Now this is manufactured so much more durably that I'm very comfortable doing this in anybody in a much, much younger age group. And then previously, and this is going to be similar to the knee, previously the stem component, the part that went down inside your thigh, this would be glued into place, but increasingly and almost in all patients, this surface is manufactured to grow right to the bone so that we take that glue interface out so that, one, we don't have to worry about the glue breaking down over time, and in fact, positively, the bone can always continue to regrow to that surface. So basically, this bond is thought to be forever. And then that technology has been basically adopted into the total knee as well. Knee replacements previously, or the most common way to do it would be to cement this metal component to your bone to hold that in place. But increasingly with anybody with most patients who have high enough bone quality, the back surface of the implant is rough, similar to the hip replacement design, which allows that bone to grow right to the prosthesis and hopefully again create a bond that's indefinite. So we previously would be afraid that a knee replacement would only last you 8 or 10 years. So we would try to withhold that until you were at a point where, frankly, that was going to be enough to get you through the rest of your life. Now I'm confident these things are going to last 30 years. So we're much more comfortable putting these in younger and younger patients. For any of these procedures, this is a 1 to 1.5 hour operation. This is a leave same day or go home the next day operation. There's therapy involved after surgery as part of the recovery. Most patients feel at least some pain relief within a week or two, and most patients with any of these things are done 3 months out are going to be dramatically better than where they started. To the hospital's credit, our infection profile, dislocation rate, acute complication, long complication statistics are above national average across the board. We do a really good job here, even considering, we got maybe, some patients with a little bit of girth to them, some hardworking people, some people that are getting back to work right away, so maybe not following ideal protocol. So I think we're doing a great job. That's enough of me blabbering about how great I am.
Can you talk to us about just like, what is that?
You can't ask questions. You work for us. You're a plant.
Okay, but I have recently, oh man, I'm gonna be out for 2 weeks. I'm not gonna be able to get out of bed. Talk to us about that myth.
That's a myth. If you have surgery, if you have even a knee or a hip replacement, you're gonna walk that day. You're gonna be on a walker for balance, but balance, not to unload the prosthesis. It's okay with me if you jump up and down and stomp on your hip or knee the day I do it. I have zero fear that that's more than the implant can handle. So, seriously, I often tell a person afterwards, you can stomp on this, you're not gonna hurt it. It may hurt, but you're not gonna hurt it or break it loose or cause any trauma. It's not delicate. So, full weight bearing day of surgery, home day of surgery frequently, home day after surgery frequently, as long as you prove that you're safe. You have to prove that we're controlling your pain, you have to prove that you can safely walk, we have to know that your home situation is safe. But yeah, when I started training in 1998, the length of stay for a total joint was recklessly being lowered from about a week to 4 to 5 days. And the old gray hair surgeons were like, this is insane. These people can't be going home this soon. And then 5 days became 3, and then 3 days became 2, and then about 5 years ago, we as a society, orthopedic surgeons as a society, explored the notion of doing outpatient joint replacement, where we said if we pick a motivated person with support at home who's safe, could we do this in the morning and safely discharge them by the end of the day? And when we started doing that, Medicare refused to pay the bill. They would say, it's impossible for you have done a joint replacement. There's no way we're paying this bill. And then we showed them the data and said, this is not only effective, this is as safe as long as the patients are selected as otherwise. And then Medicare said, that's great, now we're only going to pay for 1 day. They went from no way to that's the only way you can do it in about 1 year, which is, proof that maybe the government occasionally does the right thing and changes. So, yeah.
Do you do ankles?
Ankle replacement? No, but we have an excellent foot and ankle surgeon that could. So I do ankle trauma. I don't do foot and ankle replacement. That would be in the 20% in my estimation. So we have Dr. Ray as our foot and ankle surgeon, and you could talk to him.
What about robotic surgery?
Robotics. My current best analogy for robotics is the navigation in your car. So you could drive to Kearney right now, right? It provides additional information. I have a robot in Holdridge. It has changed the way I do non-robotic knee replacement just a little bit. But all the robot is doing is helping me align the knee to where it needs to be in you to match your rotation. But that's the whole operation. So that's what I've been trying to do since 1998, is figure out where that thing goes. So simplistically, when I do it on manually, I put the knee in a particular place. The robot, basically the way I do it is I measure the inside of your bones, the shaft of your femur and the shaft of your tibia, and then use that as the plumb line to put the knee. When you use the robot, you teach the robot in space, where's the center of your hip, where's the ankle, where are the motions of flexion, extension, and then the robot, the computer algorithm, decides where the knee should be, and then I say yes or no. My point is, I think 95 or 98% of the time, you're not going to let Holdridge see this, are you? This is the bullseye. I think when I do it myself, I get there this way, and I think when I do the robot, I get there this way. And having done it this way thousands of times, I'm checking that the robot got it right this way. And now when when the robot gets it this way, when I do it this way, I'm kind of adjusting where that perfect center point is. My point being, almost always it ends up being the same outcome. And I think it's a little bit of, maybe it helps the outliers a little bit. And I think that's pretty much what the literature says, is that maybe it increases reproducibly a little bit, or reproducibility just a little bit. Who's going to ask me about the Jiffy knee? Who's heard of the Jiffy knee? Nobody? That's reassuring to me.
I've heard of it, I don't know what it is.
The Jiffy knee is an advertising gimmick, whereby if I pay the proprietors of Jiffy Knee, I think it's $100,000 a year, I can advertise that I do the Jiffy Knee, and then if you Google Jiffy Knee, my name will pop up and you'll drive to my office to have it done. There is nothing unique about the surgery. Nothing.
So it's not quicker recovery?
Nothing. Everything that on the website that they list as unique and special is everything that we already do. It'd be like if I sold you a Corvette and said it had power steering, and you had no idea that all cars have power steering, you would think, wow, this drives really nice. It is absolutely an advertising gimmick. And if they were here, I would. It's annoying to knee surgeons as a society because it's gimmicky. It's gimmicky. And I'm sure, if you have a Jiffy Knee done really well by a really well-trained surgeon, you'll have a good outcome. But you'll have a good outcome if you have a non-Jiffy knee because it's the same operation.
So it's using the same parts, same prosthetic?
There's no, you can claim you use a Jiffy knee and use whatever parts you want. You just have to sign the agreement and
Pay them money.
is there a lion loose in the building? There's people running around.
Morning class.
That's great.
Shop, I know we joked about getting some of our friends in this afternoon, but maybe talk to us about, schedules and things like that for surgery or appointments.
I'm here every Tuesday, and I'm in the community multiple days every week. And the last thing I want to say on that, the fact that I live remotely, I've been doing this, as I said, for 10 years. Never have I been unable to get back for an emergency that I needed to get back for. It's either been handled by my assistant, my staff, my nursing staff, my hospital staff, the primary care doctors here, or Travis Barkmeyer, who kind of works as my right-hand man, really. Or occasionally I've even told the company, I got to get back. I'm perfectly willing to drive. So far, the company has always got me back anytime I've needed to get back. So, as I mentioned, our complication profile is minimal, and that's true of orthopedics in general. So there aren't a lot of middle of the night things that I have to physically be present for. But were something happen, I can get here. As opposed, and then to the comment about when you can see me, call I don't have her own number memorized. But you could provide it. But we can usually see patients within days, not weeks. I know that, my larger group competitor in Kearney probably does, appointments within a day or so, but the most likely thing, if you called New West and said, my shoulder hurts, you would see the advanced practitioner who would start your workup, and then you wouldn't see one of the orthopedic surgeons until the second or third visit. I can get you in to see me and get you closer to the, if unfortunately that we're talking about surgery, I can get you to the end of treatment or get you to surgery much quicker. So if you can see them in a day, but you can't have surgery for 6 months, you can't see me for 5 days, but I can operate on you in 2 months or maybe 6 weeks, I think that's an advantage. And we try hard to keep that time from visit to potential surgery as close as we can. Was that a good answer? Who worked out this morning? Group class, or are you guys just all here? Who plays pickleball? Nobody?
You love pickleball players, right?
Wonderful source of business. Wonderful source of business. So many sore knees, twist ankles. I've even seen some real things happen. I think we need to get a pickleball court here at this YMCA. The Jeff Shop. Well, the Lexington Regional Jeff Shop Springfield. Yeah, let's get a pickleball court going on.
You like pickleball too?
I love playing pickleball. Wear your eye protection. I had a black eye for a week once. It was bad.
How much pain does a patient have to be in to get new hip?
We as a society have tried hard to create some sort of a checklist or a point scoring system to say this is the threshold at which you should have a joint replacement. And we really haven't figured out the perfect solution to that because pain is so subjective, right? It's even difficult for you to explain to me what your pain is. Interestingly, the way we do it in the literature is you have an analog scale. You have a scale from 1 to 10. You're supposed to mark a hash mark. That's why you frequently hear us say, how bad does this hurt on a scale of 1 to 10? Because that's an attempt to quantify something that really can't be quantified. So my entire career have never said, you need your hip replaced. I would evaluate you, talk to you about your x-rays, ask you what your symptoms are. Do you sleep okay? Do people say, hey, we're gonna go do something, and you say no because you know your hip is gonna hurt afterwards? Do you have trouble taking care of the things around the house? Are you able to be active? Are you able to exercise? If you're missing some of those questions, then I would say, well, an option would be to have your hip replaced. These are the potential complications. This is the most likely outcome. And this is the time at which you could go back to all your activities. And then I know I'm dodging the question, but I've dodged it my whole life. I say these are the benefits of the surgery. Does that sound appealing to you, or do you want to keep talking about other non-operative things? And then if you say, I don't want any surgery at all, I'm still okay with that. I'm still happy to manage your hip pain. We could talk about other strategies. Maybe have you arrange to have an injection, come back and talk to me in a few weeks or months. Did that help? The beauty of an injection is it gives you insight into just what life can be without hip pain. So frequently a patient will come and say, my hip's not so bad. I don't think I want a replacement, but I just wanted to talk to you. I'll give them an injection. They'll come back a month later and say, I had no idea how much my hip was just affecting my entire life until I didn't have hip pain. Now I don't want to have hip pain. Happy to talk to any of you about any of these things. We have a full day of surgery today. We're fixing an ACL. We got a little joint replacement. We're doing a little hand. So, a perfect day for me, a nice day of general orthopedics. Thanks for letting me interrupt your coffee consumption. My pleasure.